Do you feel like you figured it out, what kind of artist you want to be right now?
I think it's always, I mean, it's always a balance between knowing what you want to do and still searching for it. I mean, if you know it 100%, then you kind of lost the motivation to search for new things. So I guess I'm quite good in that balance. Like I think I've got a quite strong image of how I want to sound and how I want to appear and what I want to do on stage. But you have to be quite open to go like new roads and to be open to be inspired by new things. And if you play on a festival, to see other bands. And I think for me it's quite important to keep that alive, to be open to be inspired by things.
Yeah. And right now you just said you've done a lot. Before playing with a live band, you've done everything on your own. Mm-hmm. What is it like now to be more in a band and maybe even compromising again?
I mean, it is quite hard to go from the studio in a live situation, and you can get really perfectionist about it. But for me, it helps to see it more like being the best cover band of myself that I can be. Because if you try to play everything 100% like it's on the record, it's kind of the recipe to fail. I mean, you have to be quite open, or at least it helps me to be quite open to let the song maybe sound a bit different on stage. But that's once you're okay with the fact that it sounds a bit different, then it starts to get like fun to create maybe some different versions live. And I mean, I think that's why people go to see you live, because they want to see the live version of the record. They don't want to hear the record like it is when they buy it. So it helped me to understand that you have to let loose a bit of the sound of the record, because you already did that. So yeah.
And is it hard to, because do you have to compromise now that you're playing with a live band, or is it still?
I wouldn't call it compromise.
No?
I would call it like new variations or something, but it's not really a compromise, no. And also, like, compared to, I'm not saying that the songs are sounding completely different on stage. It's just like little details that probably only I know, but it doesn't feel like a compromise. I have really good people around me in the band, and they are better at their instrument like I am. I'm quite trusting these guys that they can like create what I want to like sound on stage.
Yeah. Because is it true that you at first had a hard time trusting people when it comes to your creative process and your art?
I mean, in general, yeah. I mean, it's when you're doing it all by yourself, it's so much like your thing and your like child and the thing you created that it can be quite hard to allow other people to bring something else in. But I got a bit better with it. I think now also the videos, I just give it up to some other people that like who I think have good ideas about the visual element.
Because you used to do that yourself as well. Right?
Yeah, I did one video by myself, and I was quite like, I just tried to do everything by myself basically. Like I tried to do the video also and the artwork, but I learned to give certain things like away to other people and to trust other people. But I guess I'm still quite perfectionist, but on the other hand, I don't really know any other bands where it's not the case. Like I think everyone's quite like control freak about their own music and how things look and stuff.
Yeah. And then I heard you said somewhere, dance has a hypnotic effect, and there is a sense of storytelling that you'd never get from seeing someone play guitar music. Mm-hmm. What do you, when you say you could never see that sense of storytelling, what is the storytelling that you do see when it comes to electronic music?
It's just something that just takes a bit more time. I mean, when I was starting DJing, the refreshing thing about it was that that you could be in a club for like 2 or 3 hours, and there was a certain dynamic happening. Like it can, like DJs like DJ Kotze, for example, they can play like 20 tracks, and then they play the track that everyone's waiting for. Like it can be like quite a long time until something is that the crowd is pleased with what they wanted to hear all the time, and that kind of storytelling I thought is really interesting. And like seeing it's like seeing guitar bands. I'm not saying that I find it uninspiring to see like a rock band playing a show, but the thing is just like I came so much from that world that the whole dance music world was so fascinating to me. And the moments that happen at a rock concert are just happening a bit quicker, you know, and you can't take like 3 or 4 hours to create something. And yeah, I think that's what I mean with the quote. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting because you are from Berlin, a city
from Cologne.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I mean, you're from Cologne, but you moved to Berlin.
Yeah,
to
I moved back now.
You moved back to Cologne again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't like Berlin.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I moved around in Germany mostly because of studios. Like I had a studio in Cologne, and then there was an opportunity in Berlin to move in a studio, and then it didn't work out there, and the studio shut down. Then I moved back to Cologne. So it's more like a functional relationship I have to cities. But it is true that Berlin can be quite distracting when you want to focus on doing music. Like Berlin is such a great city to visit, but I prefer to leave it after I played there, because it's just so much happening. And it's a good feeling that you know that you're not missing out that much. Like in Cologne, you have an overview of what's happening also in the nightlife, and I guess like in Amsterdam a bit, like it's probably a bit the same.
Because I was about to ask, is there a big dance scene in Cologne?
I mean, it's small, but it's relevant. That's how I would put it. I mean, the figures in Cologne, although they're not really playing much in Cologne, they're quite more playing outside. But I think, yeah, it left a certain mark also in the world, in the dance music in general. People like Justus Könke or Michael Meyer or the Compact guys. Yeah, it's to me it feels like this, like quite small and also open-minded. I mean, that's why in 2010 or 11. A guy called Tobias Thomas, he asked me to join him at his party, Total Confusion, which is like the Compact guys are DJing there, Michael Meyer and Super Pitcher. But I mean, back then I was this coming from a rock band and this kid, and they just asked me to DJ with them, and I could like watch over their shoulder what they're doing, and that says something about the open-minded vibe in Cologne. That they're not, that the borders between the genres are not that fundamental, and that it's quite natural in Cologne to mix things up, and that's what I like about it.
Did you feel like that was different in Berlin?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in Berlin it was more like techno people hanging out with each other. They don't have anything to do with bands stuff. Because it's so big that certain genres have their own like communities, you know. And in Cologne, it's more about doing music, and you're more likely to just see if you get along with each other. Like it's more about that element than it is about doing the same genre. And I think that's quite healthy in the creative scene, and it's quite productive. Yeah.
In which city did you finish your album?
In Cologne. Yeah, I
Did
think
you started it in Berlin?
I think I started in Berlin, and then I moved back to Cologne and finished it there. Yeah.
Do you feel like that helped finishing the album?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, when I'm in the studio, I'm quite isolated anyway from the city, so it's quite yeah, like I said, a functional relation that I have to the city, and it sounds weird, but I think it could happen anywhere. Like, I just need a room to record. I think I may even go for the second album just somewhere completely else, to be not like to be focused on the album. Like, I'm not really, when I'm doing the album, I'm not really inspired by my surroundings, I have to say. Like,
yeah.
I have such a strong image of what I want to do that I'm just focusing on that. Yeah, so it didn't really matter if it was Berlin or Cologne, I think.
Did that image change during the album process?
Not really. It changed before I started doing the album. Like, I thinking about the album changed the image a bit into like more classic song structures and more clear production. But once I started the album, I think I knew what I wanted to do. I mean, it wasn't like I knew what was coming. Like, there were moments where I did some tracks and then I realized a certain like sound is missing on the album, and then I did, like, for example, a track like Belong, which is quite a, like, it doesn't have guitars, it doesn't have real drums, it's quite an electronic and compressed synthesizer song, and it sounds on purpose quite like clinic and clean, and a track like this only evolved because I finished a certain amount of other tracks, and so I didn't know where the album takes me. Like, I was open to just start and then see where it takes me. But the image in general, how I wanted to sound, was quite clear, I think. Like, yeah. I think a certain kind of limitation is always productive, at least for me. Like, when you imagine or that you think about how you want to sound before you go in the studio, that was quite helpful for me. Yeah.
Do you think you're going to use this formula again with your next album?
I wouldn't really call it a formula, but I think a certain limitation will always help me to not go completely crazy in the studio, like to know where I want to go. But I try to, like right now, I try to like soak in new music and be inspired by other stuff. I think I don't know where the second album will take me, but I'm quite open to go to some new directions. Yeah.
Have you already started working on some new material?
I collected some ideas, but I mean my first album didn't even come out, so I think it's quite early. But I mean, there have been some like brainstorming going on in my head about where I could go and what could be a good next move, and but I think I need a bit more time to develop that. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Cool.
Thank you so much.